This is him. I was straddled on top of him like this.
Okay.
And he couldn't fight back. It was actually surprisingly easy. He was saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why? Ah!" And I just kept on stabbing his neck. I was so excited, so rushed up on adrenaline, and I was just
This is our main protagonist in today's video, and his name is Brian Cohey. The 19-year-old with a troubled past and with various mental health disorders is being interviewed by an investigator. Brian reportedly admitted killing and beheading a homeless man. The Messer County Coroner's Office identified the victim earlier to be a 69-year-old man named Warren Barnes. During the police investigation, Brian casually boasted about his lifelong fascinations about death and morbidity, but particularly the scary manner of this whole thing was, in which way he would go on to describe the act.
I cut open his belly to see his guts. It really pink. Sorry, that was morbid. I tossed the arm bits around, like I took the right arm bit, threw it out, took the left arm bit, threw it out, and then I took the head, put it in a leftover box. I always wanted to know what it felt like to cut someone. It was just curiosity, more or less.
On March 1st, 2021, Brian Cohey was arrested in Colorado after a bag of human remains was found at a local address. A call was made from someone who said that they believed they found human remains inside a plastic bag at a home. The department would conduct multiple searches, and human remains were found at one of the searched locations. Police said Cohey was associated with one of the searched addresses, and so in which he was taken into custody for questioning. It was then later determined that Cohey killed Barnes on the 27th of February. And of course, killing someone is just downright horrifying, but it was the way he did it that will send shivers down your spine.
And how did you get here?
I murdered someone.
Okay. So start back at the beginning and go slow and tell me as many details as you can remember.
So, because I mean, Murray going to jail for the 15 years probably.
I have no idea.
Because
We're at the beginning.
it's murder. I mean, I'm going to jail for 20 probably, but I am in a bad state of mind at that time. I have major depressive disorder, so I am not thinking something positively.
Okay.
And Brian, before you start, you say you have a major depressive disorder. I'm just curious what those are.
Well, actually, I have several. I have high-functioning Asperger's.
Okay.
I have ADHD.
Uh-huh.
And major depressive disorder.
At the very beginning of the interrogation, Brian shows that he knows what he's done, and in fact he kind of guessed how many years he was going to get in jail, for which indicates a bit of self-awareness. However, that is opposing with his inappropriate emotional responses, making the situation a whole lot more perplexing and a whole lot more disturbing. His disclosure of having a high-functioning Asperger's syndrome, or known as ASD, as well as ADHD and major depressive disorder, provides some context, though it doesn't really excuse or kind of explain the alleged violent behavior.
So what's important to me is to learn as much about you and what you did and as I can.
Well,
As many details as you can give me, the better.
yeah, there's a road underneath, right?
Uh-huh.
Out under the overpass. And I was driving along, and I see a shape here on the railway tracks. So I'm like, oh, interesting.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's a homeless person. So I grab my knife, I put on 3 layers of gloves.
What are you worried about? I mean, this looks like it's pretty close to the road and stuff. Somebody seeing you or catching you?
It was 11 p.m.,
Okay.
so not many were driving by.
So were you worried about them seeing you?
I was worried about one of them stopping. But
What did you think could happen if somebody...
Well, if they looked, well, it was quite dark under there, so they wouldn't have seen the guy unless they looked. They would have seen me holding a bloody 12-inch knife, wearing gloves, and wearing a mask to conceal my identity, a face mask.
Okay. So you weren't doing it for COVID, you were doing it to hide your face?
Partially, social distancing.
His approach to this interrogation could be some sort of coping mechanism or defense strategy by just being upfront and seeming quite casual. Or he could just want to control the narrative and deflect the intensity of the situation, or perhaps attempting to manipulate the perception of his mental state. The officer had by now realized that he's dealing with a very dangerous individual with serious issues. He observed that the killer loved to boast and talk about his crimes, so he allowed him to kind of speak freely, only interjecting with some brief questions. And everything was proceeding relatively smoothly as Brian began delving into the gruesome details of his crime. It seemed like the officer would quickly conclude his questioning, but what followed was a shock that left him utterly speechless.
I took the knife, I pulled back the canvas, and I stabbed his neck.
Okay.
He was panicking at first, in his old man's voice. He was in his 50s. I know why I call him old man. He was saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why? Ah!" And I just kept on stabbing his neck. Is it okay if I do a demonstration?
Oh, yeah.
This is him. I was straddled on top of him like this.
Okay.
And he couldn't fight back. It was actually surprisingly easy. I was barely breaking a sweat. I thought, oh, this guy, he's going to be tough. But no, it was actually surprisingly easy. And during the time I was growling and making animalistic noises,
Why were you doing that?
I suppose it was a frenzy.
Okay.
I was so excited, so rushed up on adrenaline and everything. Like
Okay.
this. Woo-hoo! And I paused and he said, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "I've been wanting to do this for a long time." All the while, no, actually, after I killed him, I just couldn't stop saying, "Sticky, dirty, dirty, sticky, sticky." I wasn't feeling anything, but
Then why were you saying that?
I don't know.
Okay.
And then after that, I stripped his clothes. I cut open his belly to see his guts. They're really pink. Sorry, that was morbid. Then I cut off his head. I gave him a Glasgow smile.
What's that?
A Joker smile. I destroyed his eyes by stabbing them in.
Okay.
And then I cut off his hands. I put those in plastic Ziploc bags. And then I cut off his right arm at this joint
Okay.
and at this joint. And then at this arm, I tried cutting it here, and then I tried cutting it here. But what happened was, I accidentally broke his bone. This one, it was poking out.
Okay.
And so I left that one here, partially cut, dismembered here, bone sticking out. And then I left his body there. And then I took the head, put it in a leftover pizza box from the dinner a few nights ago.
Some people will go on to commit these heinous crimes in order to get some publicity or in order to gain attention, whether it be a good way or a bad way. But bragging about this crime might be a continuation for their need of attention or for the need of acknowledgement. They might see this as some sort of accomplishment or something that sets them apart from others. Brian's calm, with his demeanor, with his laughter, and with his overall seemingly friendly behavior during this interrogation kind of makes no sense, especially given the scale of his crime. This suggests a level of emotional detachment or just a whole lot of disconnection from the actual situation. People with ASD can sometimes have a difficulty understanding or expressing emotions in the same way as neurotypical individuals do. While it is a spectrum and experiences can vary quite widely, it's essential to note ASD alone does not make a person violent. While depression can lead to various behavioral changes and extreme violence as described in the scenario, it isn't a typical manifestation. However, it's possible that the profound feeling of hopelessness, anger, and despair could play a role in the individual's actions or perceptions. Brian would go on to continue to describe the details of his crime and would provide the investigators everything that they needed to know for the investigation, and he actually gave them more that they wanted to know.
I was thinking about taking out his heart. I was planning to maybe keep a finger.
You haven't got that far yet.
No. Right here, yeah. And
I think you stabbed him anywhere besides, but I know you said the neck a lot of times. How many times do you think? Did you count them?
No. I was going until he stopped. And here's where my car was parked. His corpse is here. You're going to want a crime scene that's roughly to the railroad tracks, because they're right here. Hid the hands and head in my room. Clean the knife, threw away the garbage with the blood on it, in a washing machine, put it on high speed so it would effectively remove the blood. Washed it twice. I take his body out, I put it in the water, and because I don't want fingerprints on a body.
So you cut him open, did you cut his arms off, his hands off, all that before you went home?
Yeah, before I went home, I tossed the arm bits around. Like, I took the right arm bit, threw it out,
Okay.
took the left arm bit, threw it out.
So it's somewhere around that bridge?
Yeah. Thank you for the water, by the way.
Sure.
Do you need more?
I will take another, please.
You know, let me go get one, okay?
I hope I'm being cooperative.
Oh, you're doing great.
The head, because it was starting to stink, I was planning on throwing the head and hands away.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I have it right. The head is inside of a trash bag.
It was.
Well, where is it now?
In the kitchen sink. My parents searched through my room and they found the head and hand.
On February 27th, after choosing a victim and committing a heinous crime, Brian, who was wearing a blue jumpsuit with a mask and gloves, took parts of the victim back to his house and hid them in a closet. He would then meticulously describe how he carefully wiped away any of the evidence or traces that might link him to the murder. After doing that, he would travel all the way back to the crime scene and loaded up the other remains of the victim into the trunk of his car, and then went to dispose the victim's remains in the river at a local boat camp. And on March 1st, police officers received a call from a reporting party that possible human remains were found in Cohey's closet. And upon the arrival of the Mercer County Sheriff's deputies, they confirmed that yes, they were human remains. And while on scene, deputies reported that Brian immediately admitted that he killed a man. Now here's the final part where he explains his reasons and his motivations behind his actions.
I always knew I would be in this building, whether it was as a criminal or a police officer. I'm not a serial killer by no means. I always wanted to know what it felt like to cut up someone.
Okay.
So the arms was...
So why did you stop? Where did you stop?
Because the arms were just... That's it. That's all I wanted to know was like cutting off a limb. And I'm just like, okay.
Okay.
And you talked about you were just kind of in a bad state that night.
It was, yes.
Okay. Why were you in a bad state?
I didn't take my medicine, and plus for years I was wondering what murder would feel like, because you read like Ted Bundy and the Zodiac, they all say murder's the best feeling in the world. So I'm like, I'm going to try that.
So how long have you been planning or looking for someone to do this with before you found this guy?
About a year?
About a year?
No, 6 months.
Do you know who the person was that you killed?
No.
You said you've thought about doing this for the last 6 months, a year.
Yeah.
Have you ever done it before?
No.
Okay. You gotta ask, right?
Yeah.
How about animals? Have you practiced on anything?
Yes.
It's pretty big stuff.
Tell us about that.
Person.
It was 2018 Halloween. A stray black cat had been coming around our house. This was before I moved into my mom's. This was at my dad's. And I was thinking about killing him. I then hid the body in a shoebox, and then I disposed it in the trash and got away with it.
Okay.
And that cat.
Did you keep him for a while like you did this guy, or?
I kept it for 3 days. Then it started to stink. There's a 3 rule for bodies. I like to call it the 3 rule.
Okay, tell me about that.
3 days, the body starts to stink. No, 3 hours, rigor mortis sets in. Body stiffens. 3 days, the body starts to stink because of decomposition. 3 weeks, the body is starting to seriously decompose.
Right.
3 months, the body is unrecognizable. 3 years, it turns into a skeleton.
And may I ask how you know that?
I I've always had a fascination with forensics and with anatomy and physiology. That's something I made up. If I go back that night, probably wouldn't have done it. Knowing that, knowing what's it felt like, knowing how this will all turn out, I wouldn't have done it.
Well, what did you think it was going to feel like? What did you said you were curious. What did you think it was going to feel like?
I thought it would be the best feeling in the world.
To summarize what is going on in the suspect's brain, the suspect's behavior and statements reveal a potential mixture of narcissism and a lack of empathy and desire for control, and along with a profound detachment from societal norms and emotions. Such a combination can be seen in people with severe antisocial tendencies or disorders, and in the end the jury found Brian Cohey guilty of first-degree murder. During the trial, Brian Cohey pleaded not guilty by insanity, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So that'll be it for today's video. Comment below if you like these true crime documentary style videos. But with all that being said, I thank you for watching, and yeah, goodbye.